before the first cities rose from the dust, before kings carved their names into stone, before memory was written into clay, the world was already divided, not by war, not by chance, but by two sisters. In the beginning, existence was not a single place, it was layered. Above, the heavens stretched endlessly, a radiant expanse where power moved like light itself. The stars were not distant fires, but living presences. The will of the divine was not hidden, it was felt. Below the heavens lay the earth, the middle realm, the place of breath, of hunger, of birth and decay, a world that struggled and bloomed beneath forces it could not see. And beneath it all, hidden from the sun, was the underworld. A vast and silent kingdom carved into darkness, a place where light did not reach, where names faded, where everything that lived came to rest. This was the order of existence. And within it, two powers held everything in balance, one above, one below. In the heavens ruled Inanna. She was not distant. She was not still. She was movement. Inanna was the force that pulled life forward. The heat beneath desire, the spark behind ambition, the rising will that made kingdoms expand and hearts surrender. She was love, and she was war. She was creation, and she was conquest. Her symbol, the 8-pointed star, burned across the sky, a sign that could not be ignored. In the great city of Uruk, her presence was not imagined. It was lived. Temples rose in her name. Priests sang to her at dawn. Kings stood beneath her gaze and claimed their right to rule. And on a night when the air was heavy with incense and the city pulsed with life, Inanna stood above it all. From the high walls, she looked down. Torches flickered through the streets like scattered stars. Voices rose, music moved, bodies gathered, loved, fought, lived. Everything below her was in motion. Everything below her answered to her. She had given them desire. She had given them victory. She had given them the force that made life refuse to remain still. And yet, beyond the reach of her light, there was something untouched. Not a city, not a people, not a kingdom waiting to be taken. Something else, something beneath, and far below the earth, beyond the reach of sound or sun. Another queen sat in silence, Ereshkigal. Where Inanna moved, Ereshkigal remained. Her kingdom did not pulse with life. It did not rise or fall. It did not change. It endured. The underworld was a place of dust and stillness, where the dead gathered in quiet multitudes, not in torment, not in peace, but in a state beyond both. There, kings stood beside servants, warriors beside children, the remembered beside the forgotten. All were the same, and at the center of that endless, unmoving realm, Ereshkigal sat upon her throne. She did not seek power. She did not leave. She did not need to. Because in the underworld, nothing could challenge her. No crown held meaning. No strength could alter fate. No voice could command return. Only one law remained. Everything that lives must come to her. And sometimes, in the endless stillness of her kingdom, Ereshkigal felt the weight of what she ruled. Not sorrow, not longing, but the unchanging knowledge that nothing escaped her, that everything, no matter how radiant, how powerful, how alive, would one day fall silent in her domain. And far above, in the brilliance of the heavens, something shifted. Two sisters, One crowned in light and desire, one seated in shadow and inevitability. They did not speak, they did not meet, but they were never separate. Because even in her height, Inanna could feel it, a quiet pull beneath the world. And even in her stillness, Ereshkigal knew that above her, life moved without end. They were not rivals, they were the shape of existence itself. Life had meaning because it ended. Death had power because life preceded it. And between them, the world turned. But power does not remain still. It expands, it reaches, it questions its own limits. And Inanna had no equal above. There was nothing she could not touch, nothing she could not influence, nothing she could not claim, nothing except one realm. The underworld, the domain of her sister, a place where her name carried no authority, where her light did not reach, where even she would be something else. The thought did not arrive as curiosity. It took root. It grew in silence. What lay beneath? What power existed in that silent kingdom? What truth did Ereshkigal hold that the Queen of Heaven did not? Inanna turned from the walls of Uruk. The music below continued. The voices rose. Life moved as it always had, but she no longer watched it. Her gaze had shifted. Not outward, downward, and once the thought had taken root, it did not leave her. She began to prepare. She adorned herself not as a woman, but as a force. The crown upon her head, the jewels at her ears, the necklace resting against her chest, the sacred garments that marked her power. Each piece carried authority. Each piece declared who she was. She called for her servant, Nin Shubur, faithful, watchful, unmoving in loyalty, and she spoke not in hesitation, but in certainty. If she did not return, if she did not rise again, then Nin Shubur was to go to the great gods, to call upon them, to demand her release, because what Inanna was about to do had no guarantee. This was not a journey, it was a crossing, and still she chose it, not by force, not by fate, but by will. The Queen of Heaven stepped away from her throne, away from her city, away from the world that answered to her name, and she began to descend. The air changed, grew heavy, still. The light thinned, then faded, then became something else. Not darkness, but absence. The movement of life faded behind her, until at last she stood before it. The first gate, vast, silent, unyielding. Beyond it lay the underworld, the kingdom of Ereshkigal, the place where all who entered were changed. A voice rose from the darkness, cold, unmoved, the gatekeeper, Neti. Who comes? Inanna did not hesitate. She spoke her name, and for the first time, it did not carry power. The gate trembled, then slowly, it began to open, and the Queen of Heaven stepped forward. Into the land where no one returns,